Rain clung to the Oregon tree line like strands of wire, each drop sharp, cold, and heavy enough to bend the pine needles. Dawn hadn't fully arrived, but the sky glimmered in a sickly gray bruise, just enough light to reveal the rural clinic crouched in the clearing below, its yellow fluorescence flickering as if the building itself were nervous. Jack Morrison pressed himself deeper into the drainage ditch, mud coating the sleeve of his leather jacket, the red and white Hells Angels patch soaked to a muted maroon. His fingers dug into the wet earth as he lifted his head just enough to see through the tall grass. A marshal moved past the clinic's east wall, rifle lifted, breath steaming in the cold. Not Valdez's men. Federal stance. Controlled steps. Beside Jack, Miguel Ramirez lay flat, eyes narrowed behind a smear of rain on his lenses. They're spread thin, he murmured. Too thin. Jack didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the window where he'd first heard her voice. Inside, Sarah, older, sharper, dressed in forest green scrubs, moved with quick, efficient hysterics. She was checking on patients, clearing pathways, directing a nurse. Even from a distance, Jack could see the tension in her shoulders, the familiar way she hid fear behind motion. Through the open window, her voice cut clean through the hum of the generator. We cannot evacuate yet. Mrs. Chen needs another 20 minutes on dialysis. The Ramirez boy's fracture isn't stable. Agent Rebecca Torres stood rigid opposite her. Valdez walked out of custody 6 hours ago, she said, tone taut. His people are en route. My job is to keep you alive, not let you play hero. Sarah didn't flinch. She tightened her grip on the dialysis tubing. These people are my responsibility. Jack felt a sting in his chest, the kind you get when something long dead remembers how to move. Sarah, still taking care of everyone but herself, Torres tried again, softer. If we wait, this becomes a siege. It already is, Sarah replied. Miguel exhaled. Your sister's stubborn as hell. Jack's jaw clenched. Always has been. Then, gravel shifted. A low rumble rolled through the clearing. Miguel froze. East Road. Jack angled up enough to see it. A black SUV cresting the rise. Then a second, then a third. Their engines purred like predators circling. Not Marshals, not civilians. Valdez. The SUVs fanned out, blocking escape routes with predatory precision. Inside the clinic, Sarah paused mid-step. The color drained from her face. Torres barked into her radio. All units. Positions. North and west corners. Move. Her order was sharp, but Jack could hear something else under it. Fear of being too late. Then the bullhorn crackled. A man's voice carried across the wet valley. Smooth. Amused. Slicing through the rain like a razor. Sarah Martinez. Jack's lungslock. Miguel swore under his breath. Valdez's voice was almost polite. You cost me 6 years. Today, we balance that ledger. Sarah stiffened. Even through the clinic glass, her breath fogged fast and shallow. Torres stepped into the doorway. Marcus Valdez, you're surrounded by federal agents. Lay down your weapons. Valdez laughed, a soft, terrible sound. Agent Torres, there are more of us than you. And unlike you, I'm not hindered by the lives inside that building. He paused, but I didn't come just for Sarah. The bullhorn adjusted. A new tone entered his voice. Pleased, knowing. Jack Morrison. Jack's blood iced. He hadn't used that name in 15 years. Not outside club circles. Not in any public record. Sarah's head jerked toward the window, not toward Valdez, but toward the tree line, toward him. Recognition hit her eyes like thunder. Jack pressed himself lower, but it was too late. Her expression said, everything. She knew he was here. She knew he'd come for her. And she knew he shouldn't have. Valdez continued, savoring each word. You've been traveling, Jack, asking questions, visiting adoption agencies, talking to social workers. Very helpful, very traceable. Jack's throat tightened. He hadn't realized every step of his search had been a breadcrumb. Miguel whispered, "He tracked your whole route." Jack didn't answer. Not because he couldn't, but because Sarah's palm was now pressed against the clinic window, fingers trembling, her eyes fixed on the shadowed ditch, where she hoped he wasn't. The bullhorn crackled again. "Come out, Jack. Let's make this civilized." Torres signaled her team, frantic now. "Hold fire. Hold. Hold." Civilians inside. But the line was crumbling. Shadows moved behind vehicles, guns raised, and then a single rifle cracked from the east lot. The valley erupted. Marshals dove for cover. Glass shattered. The clinic lights flickered under the strain. The nurse screamed. A monitor beeped wildly. Jack's heart slammed in his chest. Sarah ducked instinctively, but not away. She shielded a patient, pulling him behind a rolling tray. Miguel grabbed Jack's shoulder. "We can't move yet. Too exposed." Jack wasn't listening. Sarah lifted her head. Rain streaked the window between them, but her gaze locked onto the ditch with perfect clarity. She looked terrified, furious, relieved, and devastated all at once. Not because Valdez had found her, but because Jack had. Another gunshot cracked. Another. But Jack didn't hear them. His eyes were on Sarah's raised hand, pressed to the glass, right over the place where her tattoo would be beneath her sleeve. The same tattoo Emma had pointed at in the diner. The same tattoo that started everything. Jack's breath hitched as the world blurred around that single image. Her hand against glass, his hand in mud, matching ink beneath skin. A perfect emotional fracture, a perfect bridge to memory. The world blurred into rain-streaked glass and Sarah's trembling hand, and then the memory hit Jack like a jolt to the spine. The same hand, the same place on the wrist, the same tattoo beneath the skin, only this one was smaller, gentler, pressed to his forearm in a warm, quiet diner on Highway 87. A child's hand. The smell of frying bacon and burnt coffee clung to Jack's clothes, the way loneliness had clung to him for years. Miller's Diner was nothing but a dim box of chrome stools and peeling vinyl, the kind of place truckers used as a confession booth when the highway got too long. Jack sat in the corner booth, back to the wall, watching rain crawl down the window like slow tears. His coffee was black, bitter, and cooling fast. He didn't notice the little girl until she was standing right beside him. "Excuse me," she chirped. Jack turned. A 7-year-old with a yellow rain jacket and curls bouncing around her cheeks stared at him with the fearless curiosity of someone who still believed the world was safe. Her eyes widened at the tattoo on his forearm, the winged skull stretching from elbow to wrist. She reached out and tapped it with one tiny finger. "My big sister has that," she announced proudly. Jack's heart hiccuped. "You're—" The girl nodded, grin bright as the diner lights. "She said she got it when she was young and brave." Then she lowered her voice as if sharing a secret, "But she says she's still brave." The words punched the air from his lungs. Brave. The same word Sarah always used to explain their matching tattoos, the one they'd gotten together the night before her 18th birthday. Jack stared at the girl as his pulse roared in his ears. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma," she said, beaming. "Emma Henderson." He tried to breathe normally. Failed. "Your sister," he said carefully. "What's her name?" Emma didn't hesitate. "Sarah." The world tilted. The diner sounds faded to static. For a heartbeat, Jack thought he might collapse right there on the linoleum. but Emma was already skipping back to her booth, climbing onto the seat beside her adoptive parents. Her mother slid a coloring book in front of her. Her father unfolded a paper map, arguing quietly about which highway they needed next. Jack forced himself to look away, to breathe, to think. His hands shook subtly beneath the table. Sarah. She'd been alive, longer than anyone believed. The waitress refilled his coffee, but he didn't hear her. He pushed himself up and practically stumbled out into the rain-soaked parking lot, the cold biting through his jacket. The only thing that steadied him was the weight in his back pocket, a shape he hadn't touched in weeks. His wallet? He pulled it out, fingers clumsy, and slid free a single folded piece of paper. The creases were nearly worn through, like the letter might dissolve if he breathed too hard on it. Sarah's handwriting stared back at him, in loops and careful strokes. Jackie, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. His throat tightened as he read the opening lines he'd memorized years ago. But tonight, after hearing Emma, every word cut deeper, sharper. The people I got mixed up with, they're dangerous, in ways I didn't understand. A tremor ran down his spine. In the clinic memory, just minutes ago, she had looked the same way she had sounded in this letter. I'm leaving to protect you. And to protect someone else, he had never understood that line. Not fully. He had assumed Sarah meant herself, or maybe some unknown friend. But now he pictured Emma's small hand on his tattoo. Now he heard, my big sister has that. His chest clenched. Someone else. Emma. He wiped rain from the paper and read the last lines again, hands shaking like they used to shake during the longest nights. When the sun sets differently and the shadows change, maybe we'll find each other again. Until then, remember our promise by the old oak tree. Your loving sister, Sarah. Look for me where the eagles nest and the water runs backward. He had always read the P.S. as metaphor, Sarah's poetic nonsense mixed with fear. Tonight it didn't look poetic. It looked like coordinates. He folded the letter slowly and slipped it back into the wallet. That was when the knock came. Exactly 10 p.m. It always was. Jack opened the motel room door to find Miguel standing there, raincoat dripping, expression carved from stone. I heard you had excitement at Miller's, Miguel said, stepping in. Jack didn't speak. He simply handed Miguel the letter. Miguel read. Twice. His lips moved silently as he took in every line. Then, with a frown, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small tactical flashlight. Jack, he murmured, did you ever check the postmark? Jack stiffened. No, never looked. Miguel angled the fading envelope under the motel lamp, then clicked on the flashlight. The beam caught the smudged postal stamp. Ink dissolved by time, but not enough to hide the truth. Crescent Bay. Postmarked 3 days after Sarah disappeared. Miguel tapped the stamp gently, voice low. Jack, this wasn't running. She was heading somewhere specific. Jack stared at the word. Crescent Bay. Suddenly, the P.S. in Sarah's letter snapped into place with blinding clarity. Eagle's nest. Water runs backward. Geography. Landmarks. Not Putri. His chest tightened, breath stuttering. Sarah had been leaving him a location, and he'd never seen it. Miguel put a steadying hand on his shoulder. We go tomorrow. First light, then softer. You're shaking. Jack exhaled. Long. Unsteady. I thought she was dead, he whispered. Miguel nodded. You're not done thinking that, but now you've got a trail. Jack looked out at the rain pooling under the streetlight, the same rain that now soaked the Oregon Valley, where Sarah was fighting for her life. Crescent Bay wasn't just a clue, it was a target, a warning, a path home. The diner was quieter in the morning, the kind of quiet that comes after a long night of rain. The neon open sign flickered weakly against the gray light creeping through the windows. Jack stood just inside the doorway, scanning the booths until he found the family, yellow jacket, curly hair. Emma. She sat with her feet dangling off the seat, humming softly while coloring in a picture of a horse. Her parents, David and Claire Henderson, sipped coffee with the tired posture of people who had driven too many miles and slept too few hours. Miguel nudged Jack gently. "Easy," he murmured. "Parents first. We don't spook them." Jack nodded, though his pulse was unsteady. The letter in his pocket felt heavier than it had the night before, as if knowledge itself had weight. They approached the booth slowly. David looked up first, cautious but polite. Claire's expression tightened when she saw two leather-clad bikers standing beside her table. "Morning," Miguel said, calm and respectful. "We're sorry to interrupt. We met your daughter yesterday. She said something important." Claire straightened. "Is she all right?" "She's fine," Jack said quickly. "We just need to ask about something she mentioned." Emma looked up from her coloring book, eyes brightening. She pointed excitedly at Jack. "You're the man with the pretty tattoo." Jack tried to smile, but his voice stuck in his throat. He felt Miguel step in, smooth as always. "Emma told my friend that her sister has the same tattoo," Miguel said. We wanted to understand what she meant. David and Claire exchanged a look, silent communication refined by years of partnership. Claire's voice softened. "Emma is adopted, her biological family." It was complicated. Jack's jaw tightened. "Her sister, what was her name?" David hesitated, then glanced at Claire. She gave a small nod. "Sarah," he said quietly. Jack's throat locked. He didn't breathe. Miguel kept the conversation moving. "We believe we may know Sarah, or at least have known her." Emma was already nodding energetically. "Sarah told me about him. She said one day I'd meet her brother, and he'd have the same tattoo to prove it." Jack had to grip the back of a chair to keep from buckling. Claire took a steadying breath. "Emma was 2 when we adopted her. We were told her older sister arranged everything. She wanted Emma safe." "Safe from what?" Miguel asked gently. David rubbed his forehead. "The agency didn't give detail, just that the situation was dangerous, and the sister insisted on placing Emma far from her home state." Claire reached for her purse and retrieved her phone. "We kept one photo from Emma's file. They said it was all right, so she'd have something of her past." She scrolled, then turned the screen toward Jack. The world stilled. Sarah stood in the picture, hair longer and darker than Jack remembered, but unmistakable. She was holding a toddler Emma on her hip. They stood before a backdrop of red rock formations, sunlight carving warm lines across their faces. Behind them, a wooden sign stood slightly out of focus. Just enough clarity to show faded letters but not the full name. Jack's breath came unevenly. The shape of the rocks, the light, the geography tugged at memories too old to trust. "That's her," he whispered. "That's my sister." Emma leaned in and grinned. She was smiling a lot that day. "It was our goodbye trip," she said. Miguel's brow furrowed. "Goodbye trip." Emma swung her feet. "She said we were going to a special place where the rocks looked like sleeping giants. She said it was where we would say goodbye before I met my new family." She paused, thoughtful, but she promised it wasn't forever. She said someday we'd all find each other again. A tightening sensation bloomed behind Jack's sternum. Sarah had known she was leaving Emma forever, and yet she'd faced it with the same bravery she always showed when the world broke in front of her. David cleared his throat. "We didn't know anything about the tattoo connection, but Emma brought it up yesterday out of nowhere. That's why we're willing to listen." Jack forced himself to steady. "Do you have anything else? Records? Documents? Notes from Sarah?" Claire squeezed David's hand briefly. Then she reached into her bag again, pulling out a slim manila envelope. "This is everything we were allowed to keep," she said softly. "We've never read the private sections. They were sealed. But the agency let us retain what related to Emma's comfort and basic information." Miguel accepted the envelope and opened it with deliberate care. Inside were photocopied forms, a few redacted pages, medical notes from a pediatric checkup, and at the bottom, a single sheet with a handwritten signature partially obscured by black ink. Most of it was redacted, but the visible portion read, "Mitch." Then the blackout resumed. Jack stared. "That's her handwriting." Miguel traced the ink lightly, probably part of her alias. "But the S is Sarah's. I know it." Claire pointed at another page. "This note is from the social worker. She wrote that Emma's sister wanted her placed somewhere along the western route, near open sky and water. We didn't understand it." Jack felt the letter in his wallet pulse like a heartbeat. "Where the eagle's nest and the water runs backward." It wasn't poetry. It was a map, a longing, a warning. Emma tugged on Jack's sleeve suddenly. "Do you want to see my picture?" He knelt beside her as she flipped to a drawing she had colored herself. 3 figures. One tall with a tattoo, one with long hair, and a little girl between them, standing before red rocks. In a child's careful handwriting, she'd written, "Sarah, Emma, Jackie." Jack inhaled sharply. "That's you," Emma said helpfully, tapping the tall figure. "Sarah said you liked motorcycles and fixing things, and that you would come when it was safe." Emotion crashed over Jack, sharp and staggering. Sarah had kept his memory alive even while hiding from him. Miguel's voice was low. "Jack, ask about the adoption agency." Jack turned to David. "Did the agency give you a name, an office, somewhere we can go?" David reached into the envelope again and pulled out a card. Aged, corners softened, but still legible. "Families First Services, Denver, Colorado." Jack took the card, fingers trembling. This wasn't just a trail. It was Sarah's last breadcrumb. Denver smelled like cold metal and airplane fuel. The sharp, restless scent of a city, always moving too fast. Jack stepped out of the taxi with Miguel beside him, the winter wind slicing through his jacket as he craned his neck at the office building ahead. Families First Services. A modest sign, a beige facade, curtains drawn. Nothing about it looked dangerous, but Jack's instincts pulsed a warning anyway. Miguel checked his watch. "We made good time, but whatever we find inside, Jack, you need to be ready." Jack nodded, jaw tight. "I've been ready for 15 years. They climbed the narrow stairwell to the 3rd floor, pushing through the glass door into a cramped lobby filled with children's drawings and the faint smell of old carpet. A receptionist looked up, curly hair in a loose bun, dark circles under her eyes. She stiffened a little at the sight of 2 bikers stepping in. "Can I help you?" Miguel handled it smoothly, producing the card from the Henderson file. "We were told to ask for Carla Rodriguez. It's about an adoption case from 5 years ago." The woman straightened. "One moment." She disappeared down the hallway. Jack waited, fingers tapping anxiously against his thigh. His mind kept replaying the photo of Sarah holding Emma, the warmth in her smile, the red rocks behind her, the determination in her shoulders, as she prepared to give up the child she loved. He didn't notice Carla until she was standing right in front of him. Early 50s, dark hair streaked with silver, kind eyes, but wary. She studied the men with the sharpness of someone accustomed to reading danger long before it reached her desk. "I'm Carla," she said, voice low. "Come with me." Her office was small, crowded with binders, sticky notes, and family photos. A space built by someone who cared too much in a job that didn't care enough back. She closed the door quietly before speaking again. "You're here about Emma Henderson." Jack exhaled. We believe she's Manisa. Carla did not react with disbelief, only with a slow, sad recognition. She gestured to the two chairs opposite her desk. Sit, and tell me why you think that. Miguel handled the talking again, organized, calm, revealing exactly enough without giving away the deeper danger. He placed 3 items on Carla's desk: the photo of Sarah and Emma, the manila card from the Henderson file, Sarah's folded letter. Carla stared at the items like they were ghosts she'd hoped never to see again. I knew the day would come, she murmured. I just prayed it wouldn't. Jack leaned forward. Please, she's my sister. I need to know what happened to her. Carla folded her hands, hesitating only a breath before diving in. Sarah Morrison didn't come to me the ordinary way. She was referred by law enforcement, specifically by Detective Maria Santos. At that time, Sarah was desperate. Carla's voice softened, but she was also determined, fiercely protective. Jack swallowed hard. That part, at least, wasn't new. She told me, Carla continued, that she needed Emma placed somewhere far from Colorado, somewhere safe. At the time, I thought she was simply running from an abusive partner or a family dispute. Carla met Jack's eyes. I was wrong. Jack's breath caught. Wrong about what? Carla slid open a drawer and pulled out a battered file box. About the scale of the threat, she opened the folder and extracted a photocopied police incident report. The majority was blacked out, but key phrases remained visible. Witness to federal criminal activity. Credible threats from organized network. Recommend immediate relocation. Subject refuses federal witness protection. Jack's pulse kicked into overdrive. Organized network. Connected to who? Carla sighed. Marcus Valdez. The name hit the room like a cold wind. Miguel cursed under his breath. Jack's blood turned to stone. Carla pressed on. Sarah witnessed something crucial, something that implicated Valdez in a federal racketeering case. Her testimony helped secure his conviction. Jack stared at the redacted lines, forcing his lungs to keep working. She never told me. She couldn't. Carla met his gaze with a mixture of sympathy and pain. After the threats escalated, Detective Santos wanted Sarah in full witness protection, but that meant abandoning Emma permanently. She refused. Jack clenched his fists until his knuckles whitened. Sarah had chosen her daughter and lost everything else for it. Carla continued, slower now. So she did the next best thing. She arranged a private adoption to protect Emma. Then she disappeared. Miguel leaned forward. But the case is closed. Valdez is serving life. Shouldn't Sarah be safe now? Carla looked down, as if bracing herself. I wish that were true. She pulled out a recent newspaper clipping. Folded, creased, overread. She slid it across the desk toward Jack. The headline hit him like a punch. Federal Appeals Court orders. New sentencing hearing for convicted crime boss Marcus Valdez. Jack's throat tightened. He could get out. Soon, Carla whispered. Very soon. Silence stretched across the office like a noose. Jack forced himself to speak. If he gets out, he'll come for her. Carla nodded. And for anyone connected to her testimony, Jack felt the air drain from the room. He thought of Sarah's voice in the clinic, the fear she tried to hide, the trembling in her hand, the way she looked toward the tree line as if expecting death to walk out of it. Miguel rubbed his jaw. We need to find her before Valdez does. There's more, Carla said quietly. She reached deeper into the box and pulled out a single handwritten note, something she'd kept for reasons she never fully understood. Sarah told me, Carla said, that if anything ever happened, to find her through one person. Jack's breath stilled. Who? Carla held out the note. Detective Maria Santos, Crescent Bay, Oregon. Jack stared at the name. Miguel exhaled sharply. The letter in Jack's pocket suddenly felt like prophecy. Carla closed the file with finality. If Valdez lawyers succeed, Sarah has days, maybe hours. If you're going to reach her, you need to go now. Jack stood slowly, eyes blazing with purpose. Then we leave now. Crescent Bay smelled of salt and old secrets. Jack stood beside Miguel on a narrow coastal road, the wind pushing at their jackets as waves broke hard against the black rocks below. The town was small, too small to hide the kind of truth they were chasing, but the coordinates Carla had given them led to a single-story bungalow sitting at the edge of the cliff, its roof rusted by sea air, its windows glowing faintly with warm light. "This is the place," Miguel murmured. Jack didn't answer. His heartbeat had settled into a slow, heavy rhythm, the kind that always preceded either revelation or disaster. He stepped onto the porch and knocked. "A moment later," the door opened just enough for a woman to assess them through the crack. Sharp eyes, gray hair pulled back, posture like someone who'd learned long ago never to let her guard down. "You must be Jack Morrison," she said before he could speak. Jack froze. "How did you—" She opened the door fully, gesturing them inside. "Sarah described you perfectly." The words struck him with a force he wasn't ready for. Inside, the living room was small but tidy. A soft blanket draped over a worn couch. Photos of families she'd helped through the years lined the mantel. A kettle hissed quietly on the stove in the open kitchen. Miguel scanned the space, ever cautious. "Detective Maria Santos. Retired," she corrected. "But some habits don't retire with you." She motioned toward the seating. "Sit. This won't be a short conversation." Jack perched on the edge of the couch, unable to fully relax. "Where is she?" Maria didn't answer immediately. Instead, she studied him with a look that was both clinical and compassionate. "You remind me of her," she said softly. "Same eyes, same stubbornness." Jack leaned forward, voice tight. "Please, I need to know she's alive." Maria finally nodded. "She is, but I need you to understand something before we talk about where." She crossed the room to a wooden chest in the corner, hand-carved, worn smooth by age. When she returned, she set it gently on the coffee table and opened it. Inside lay a bundle of letters tied with faded ribbon. Jack's breath caught. "Are those every one she wrote to you?" Maria said. "Birthdays, Christmas, days she missed you so much." It nearly broke her. She never mailed them. Too dangerous. But she wrote them anyway. It was how she stayed sane. Jack reached for the bundle with a tremor in his hand. The top letter bore his name in the handwriting he hadn't seen since he was 27. He untied the ribbon slowly. "Jackie, I saw a motorcycle today that looked like yours. I wondered if you were riding the mountain roads. I wondered if you still keep the promise we made under the old oak tree." His vision blurred. He blinked hard, forcing himself back to the room. Maria watched him with quiet empathy. "She didn't stop loving you. She never stopped being your sister." Jack swallowed. "Then why didn't she come home?" Maria exhaled, lowering herself into an armchair. "Because coming home would have killed her. Or killed someone she loved." Miguel folded his arms. "Carla told us Sarah's testimony helped put away Valdez, that he's up for resentencing." Maria nodded, a shadow crossing her face. "Valdez is one thing. The men behind him, the ones who didn't get caught, they're worse." Sarah wasn't running from one man. She was running from a network. Jack's gut twisted. "And she's still running. She's surviving." Maria corrected. "There's a difference." Jack clenched the letter until the paper crinkled. "I want to help her. Then you need to understand the life she built." Maria rose again and pulled out a stack of photographs, printed, not digital, to avoid tracking. She spread them across the table, Sarah smiling beside a mobile medical van, Sarah kneeling to wrap a child's bandaged arm, Sarah at a community food drive. Sarah walking alone through a pine forest trail, eyes alert even in peace. She works as a nurse practitioner in a clinic deep in the interior valley. Maria said, mostly migrant families, farm workers, isolated locals. She's good at it. She sees people others don't. She paused, but she never stops watching her shadow. Jack traced one photo with his fingertip, the one where Sarah's smile hinted at exhaustion more than joy. Miguel leaned over the table. Why here? Why Oregon? Because it's quiet, Maria said. Because she could disappear without anyone asking too many questions. And because she trusted me to keep her safe. Jack lifted his gaze. Then why call us here now? Maria hesitated. The first real hesitation she'd shown because things changed this week. She crossed to her desk drawer and retrieved a printed report marked with redacted blocks similar to Carla's files. I still have friends in law enforcement, she said, and 2 days ago, I got word that certain individuals, the kind linked to Valdez, were making inquiries along the coastal region, inquiries about medical staff, single women, clinics near the forest routes. Jack felt the temperature in the room drop. They found her. Not yet, but they're getting close. Maria tapped the report, close enough that Sarah contacted me for the first time in years. Miguel straightened. What did she say? Maria's jaw tightened. She asked if Emma was safe. Jack's heart thudded. She still worries about her. She worries about both of you. Silence stretched between them, heavy and electric. Finally, Maria walked to a small shelf and retrieved a folded topographical map. She laid it flat, smoothing its edges. This, she said, pointing to a marked location deep within a dense valley, is where Sarah worked, and where she sleeps most nights. It's remote, hard to access. Exactly why she chose it. Jack leaned over the map, his pulse accelerating. How do we get there? Maria circled a rough route through Forest Service roads. This is the safest approach, but you'll need to be careful. If someone else is tracking her, they may already be watching the main roads. Jack memorized the path with fierce precision. Maria studied him for a long moment. Jack, when you find her, don't expect the sister you remember. Trauma changes people. Hiding changes people. Jack folded the map carefully, tucking it into his jacket. I don't care who she's become. I just need her alive. Miguel stood as well. Then we leave immediately. But Maria shook her head gently. Not immediately. The men paused. She stepped closer, her voice low. Urgent. Leave now, she said, and pray you're not already too late. The road out of Crescent Bay twisted inland through fog and old-growth timber, the kind of terrain that swallowed sound and secrets whole. Jack's Harley rumbled beneath him like a restless heartbeat, Miguel following close behind as they pushed east toward the interior. By noon, the mountains opened into a vast plain, flat, wind-scoured, dotted with long-distance truck stops. Somewhere out there, Jack knew, was the network he'd always trusted more than the law. The biker grapevine. News traveled through it faster than bullets, slower than mercy. The first neon sign appeared like a mirage on the highway. Mountain Star truck stop. Hot coffee and diesel. Miguel pointed with 2 fingers. Jack nodded and pulled off. The parking lot was littered with long-haul rigs and sun-faded sedans. And there, leaning against a custom road glide, with matte black pipes and chrome skull mounts, was a man built like a refrigerator in leather. Diesel Murphy. Patches covered both his arms. Clubs, chapters, memorials. The kind of man who didn't need to say he'd seen too much. His scars said it for him. He looked up the instant Jack killed his engine. Well, Diesel boomed. Thunder Morrison in my neck of the woods. That's either good news or the worst kind. Jack dismounted and clasped forearms with him. You tell me. Diesel's eyes flicked to Miguel. That one's still alive. Miracles happen. Miguel snorted. Alive enough to drink your beer. Diesel barked a laugh. Inside, both of you. The diner inside the truck stop smelled like burnt bacon, diesel fumes, and a faint hint of bleach. Home to any man who'd spent a lifetime on the road. Diesel took a booth in the corner, sliding in with a grunt that shook the table. A waitress poured 3 coffees, recognizing Diesel without a word. Once she moved away, he leaned forward, dropping his voice. "You're being hunted." Thunder. Jack stiffened. Miguel's jaw twitched. Diesel continued, tapping a massive fingertip on the table. "I've had people in suits, city boys, show up at 3 different clubhouses in California and Oregon, asking about you, flashing money, real money, trying to keep it quiet." Jack's pulse climbed. What were they asking? How long you'd been riding north? If you were with anyone? If you'd asked questions about missing persons? Diesel paused. And if you'd been seen talking to families, especially families with adopted kids? Jack felt the floor tilt. Miguel muttered a curse under his breath. Diesel kept going. Most clubs didn't talk. Some didn't need to. Those suit boys already had half your route mapped out. Valdez people. Miguel asked. Diesel shrugged. Could be. Could be feds. Could be something meaner. But they were too polished for local thugs, too loose for federal agents, and too damn organized to be amateurs. Jack felt a cold, groveling certainty. They're tracking us the same way we're tracking Sarah. Diesel nodded grimly. And they're ahead of you in at least 2 states. Silence settled over the booth. Thick, heavy, dangerous. Diesel leaned back. You running into trouble. Thunder. Jack answered honestly. Yeah, Miguel added. Big trouble. Diesel drummed a tattoo on the table. Then you listen close. There's a town called Pine Ridge, about 2 hours northeast. Small place. Gas station. Diner. General store. That's it. Word is, one of those fancy SUVs. Your hunter's ride was spotted just outside town yesterday. Jack exchanged a glance with Miguel. Waiting. Jack asked. Watching. Diesel said, those boys didn't get gas, didn't buy food, didn't talk, just sat there, like they were expecting someone to roll through. Expecting us, Miguel said. Diesel gave a slow nod. Jack felt the shift in him, the one that always came before the storm, the part of him that had been tired, broken, searching, sharpened into something cold and singular. I need to get ahead of them, Jack said. Diesel pointed 2 thick fingers at him. Then don't take the main road. Take Route 71 through the valley. Pine Ridge sits in a bowl. You can see the whole town before they see you. Gives you options. Miguel stood. Then we leave now. Diesel caught Jack's arm before he could rise. Thunder. A beat. Whatever you're walking into, be sure you walk out. Sarah wouldn't survive losing you again. Jack froze. Not because of the words, but because of the way Diesel said them, like he already knew how deep the story ran. Jack squeezed Diesel's arm. Thanks. Don't thank me. Diesel grunted. Just don't be stupid. The ride to Pine Ridge cut through valleys and narrow ridges where the wind howled like something alive. Jack kept pushing his bike harder, the urgency clawing at his ribcage. When they reached the last hill, the road fell away into a wide view of the town below. All 30 or so buildings clustered around a tired main street. Miguel slowed. Take a look. See it? Jack spotted it instantly. A black SUV. Tinted windows. Government plates. Parked at the diner, facing the gas station, and the road they had just ridden down, watching, waiting. Jack's breath hitched. They're already here. Miguel's eyes narrowed. Question is, whose side are they on? Jack studied the SUV for a long, heavy moment. Movement inside. A shadow leaning forward. a shape turning toward the hill. Then the SUV engine rumbled to life. Slow, deliberate, predatory. They see us, Miguel said. Jack revved his bike. Pulse pounding, he corrected quietly. They've been waiting. The SUV's engine growled like a warning animal, but it didn't move toward Jack and Miguel. It simply idled, patient, watching, blocking the main road like a black reef, waiting for a ship to break on it. Miguel leaned close. We can't go straight. They'll box us in. Jack scanned the terrain. Pine Ridge sat low in the valley basin, but the ridge behind them sloped into a network of dry creek beds, shallow, narrow, and overgrown with brush. A perfect, natural trench. There, Jack said, we take the ditch. Miguel nodded. Quiet and slow, they pushed their bikes off the shoulder, killing the engines and letting momentum carry them down into the brush. Dirt scraped underfoot. Branches snapped softly as they guided the Harley frames into shadow. Above them, the SUV's headlights cut across the ridge, pausing where they'd stood moments before. Jack and Miguel froze. A door opened. A figure stepped out. Dark jacket, buzzed hair, scanning. Then, the figure looked the wrong direction. Miguel exhaled through his teeth. We move now. They crouched low, crawling the ditch line until it curved behind a cluster of pine. The air smelled of sap and damp earth. Their boots sank into soft soil as the forest absorbed the sound. Once the SUV lay out of sight, Jack found the hidden service trail Maria had marked on the map. It was barely a road, more like a forgotten ATV track, winding toward the far side of the valley. The clinic appeared through the trees just as dusk began to fall. A plain building with a gravel lot, surrounded by dense pines, and a narrow clearing. But what mattered wasn't the structure, it was the movement around it. Federal Marshals. 3 at the front, 2 at the side entrance. Another pair on the roof. Jack stiffened. Dumb. They beat us. Miguel tugged him down behind a fallen log. This is good. If they're here, it means Sarah's alive. Jack peered through pine needles. The Marshals moved in practiced formation. Alert. Tense. Communicating silently with hand signals. Their body language was clear. Threat level high. Target inside. Perimeter tight. Then Jack saw her, through the clinic's front window, illuminated by dim hall lights. Sarah moved between patient room. Her hair was tied back, her scrubs streaked with a long shift's fatigue, but her posture was sharp, shoulders squared, voice calm, mouvements efficient, alive, real, so close he almost broke cover. Miguel gripped Jack's arm. Stay down. Jack swallowed hard, forcing himself to breathe. Through the glass, Sarah paused at a dialysis machine beside an elderly patient. She adjusted tubing, whispered reassurance, then stepped toward the hallway where a federal agent intercepted her. Jack strained to hear. The agent, slim, disciplined, undeniably authoritative, was Agent Rebecca Torres. Jack recognized the stance. Someone used to command. Martinez, we're out of time, Torres said, voice firm even through the window. We need to evacuate non-critical patients now. Sarah shook her head sharply. Jack felt the old, familiar defiance in the tilt of her jaw. I am not abandoning these people. Your safety is priority. Their lives are priority. Torres stepped closer, lowering her voice. Sarah, listen to me. Valdez is out. The words hit Jack like a physical blow. Sarah's hands froze in mid-motion. Her breath visibly stalled. She whispered, yes. Torres said, he walked out 12 hours ago, pending appeal, and our intel says he's mobilizing his men. They're coming here. We intercepted communication about your clinic an hour ago. Sarah gripped the counter, knuckles white, eyes wide with a mix of terror and fury. They can't know I'm here. Torres hesitated. the hesitation of someone who didn't want to confirm the truth. We think they do. Jack felt heat climb his spine. Miguel muttered, "We need a plan." Now, inside, Sarah turned toward the deeper hallway. "I'm not leaving," she insisted. "Mrs. Chen will crash without finishing dialysis. The Ramirez boy still needs stabilization on his leg fracture. I can't move them yet." "Then we move faster," Torres snapped. "We'll reinforce positions." Sarah actually laughed. "Short, brittle. Against Valdez's people, you don't have enough bodies." Torres looked at her with a grim truth. "We're not here to win. We're here to buy time." Jack braced himself against the bark of the log, heart hammering. He wanted to run into the clinic, grab his sister, and drag her to safety. But this wasn't a bar fight. This was a tactical nightmare. Miguel leaned closer. "Jack, look." On the far edge of the clearing, barely visible through trees, a different kind of shadow moved. 3 figures, dark clothing, no tactical gear, no flashlights. Silent. Watching the clinic from the tree line, Jack's pulse spiked. Valdez men. Miguel frowned. Could be scouts. Could be advance team. Below, in the gravel lot, Torres lifted her radio. "Perimeter Charlie. Report." Static. Then a marshal's voice. "Movement east side. Unknown." A sharp crack split the air. Not gunfire. A signal. A warning. Then a second crack. Closer. Sarah flinched inside the clinic. Torres snapped toward her team. Jack and Miguel pressed deeper into the shadows. As the clearing shifted into full alert, Marshals raised rifles. Torres barked orders. The clinic lights dimmed to emergency mode. Miguel's voice dropped to a whisper. "They're flanking." Jack's jaw clenched. "They're already here." Another figure emerged near the opposite tree line, then another beside the parked SUV they'd seen on the ridge, now creeping down the service road toward the clinic. A coordinated approach. A chokehold, tightening. Miguel exhaled. "We're behind schedule." Jack's breath trembled. "We're not behind, we're in the middle." Torres shouted toward the clinic. "All units, prepare for breach." And inside, Sarah pressed both palms flat against the glass, as if she could push the danger back by sheer will. Jack's chest cracked open at the sight. He whispered her name once. Silent. "Despérate." Miguel's hand closed around his shoulder. "Jack," he said, voice low, steady. "This is the storm we came for." Before Jack could answer, a voice echoed from the trees. Cold, confident, amplified through a portable speaker. "Sarah Martinez, your time is done." A pause. Then, "Marcus Valdez is coming for what's his." The bullhorn's echo died into the trees, leaving the valley carved in a silence far too deliberate to be natural. Miguel whispered, "He's here himself." "That's bad." Jack didn't answer. His sister's silhouette still framed in the clinic window, hands pressed to glass. Fear buried under a mask of duty was more than he could bear. Valdez's voice rolled again across the clearing. "Sarah Martinez, you cost me 6 years. Tonight, I collect." Something broke in Jack, clean and sharp. Miguel felt it before Jack moved. "Don't. We need a plan." Jack rose anyway. Boots, brushing pine needles. "Too late for quiet," he said. A single roar ripped through the night, Jack's Harley firing to life. It was a declaration, a warning, and a challenge. Every head. Valdez scouts, the Marshals, even Sarah inside, snapped toward the growl splitting the tree line. Miguel cursed under his breath but swung onto his own bike. "I swear you're going to get me killed." Both engines exploded forward. Lights off, tires skidding dirt as they burst from the ditch and tore straight toward the clinic's rear perimeter. Shouts erupted. Torres jerked her rifle up. Valdez's men swung weapons toward the sound, but Jack and Miguel didn't slow. They shot into the clearing like twin bolts of steel, swerving behind the clinic's utility shed, just as bullets cracked past them and buried into tree trunks. "Move!" Miguel yelled. They ditched the bikes and sprinted low behind a row of propane tanks near the back entrance. Gravel crunched under Jack's boots. The air vibrated with gunfire. Inside, Sarah's head snapped toward the rear hallway, eyes wide, recognizing that noise instantly. "Jack," she whispered, as if afraid speaking it aloud would make him disappear. Torres ducked beside her, grabbing her arm. "What the hell is he doing here?" Sarah's voice trembled, but her spine stayed rigid. "Saving us." On the far side of the clearing, Valdez stepped out from behind his armored SUV. He didn't look like a man on the run. He looked like a man who had come to finish a debt. Two of his men approached him. "Boss." That was Morrison. "Confirmed." Valdez smiled without humor. "Good. Saves me the trouble of hunting him." But then a sound rolled through the forest that none of them expected. A low hum, then a rumble, then a thunderstorm of engines, dozens, heavy, synchronized, growing louder with every second. Miguel lifted his head from behind cover and grinned. "That's beautiful." Jack didn't dare breathe. From the west ridge, headlights poured through the pine. 12 Harleys cresting the hill in perfect formation. Chrome catching moonlight. At the front, Tommy Iron Garcia, president of the Sacramento chapter. Behind him, chapter heads from Oregon and Northern California, colors blazing red and white. Hell's Angels had arrived, and they were not subtle about it. Valdez's men faltered, stepping back instinctively as the column descended like a steel avalanche. Engines snarled, tires slammed the gravel, boots hit the ground. Tommy walked forward, helmet under his arm, the weight of authority rolling off him in visible waves. "Valdez," Tommy called, voice calm and absolute. "You picked the wrong family." Valdez tilted his head. "This is federal jurisdiction." Tommy shrugged. "We're not here for you. We're here for our brother." He pointed directly at Jack. Jack rose from behind cover, dust streaking his jacket. "Yuff. Set. I'm done hiding." Torres stormed outside then, fury cut with relief. "Morrison, you don't get to turn this into a biker war." Tommy held up both hands, a surprisingly respectful gesture. "No war, just balance." Behind her, Marshals tightened their line. They weren't pointing guns at the bikers, but neither were they relaxed, and so it became what it was always destined to be: 3 codes, 3 forces, 1 clearing, no exit. Torres stepped forward, pulling a small device from her vest, a tactical tablet linked to federal systems. She raised her voice so Valdez could hear. "Marcus Valdez," she said, "your early release is revoked." Valdez lifted an eyebrow. "On what grounds?" Torres tapped the screen. Audio crackled through the square. "Prison call log, 32 p.m. 2 voices." Valdez's voice unmistakable. "Discussing Sarah, discussing her clinic, discussing killing witnesses." Torres raised the tablet. "This is your voice discussing premeditated retaliation against a protected witness. You violated every condition of your release." Valdez's jaw tightened. Torres kept going. "We have timestamps, metadata, phone authentication, chain of custody confirmed." She showed her badge. "You're done." A murmur rippled through the Marshals. Even Valdez's men glanced uneasily at each other. But Valdez didn't back down. Instead, slowly, deliberately, he reached behind his coat. Jack shouted, "Torres!" Too late. Valdez pulled something from his belt. Not a gun, something worse. A handmade blade, shining under the moonlight. Prison steel, improvised, bone handle wrapped in torn bedsheet. a shiv forged by men who had nothing but hatred and time. His voice dropped into a dead whisper. I spent 6 years building this moment. Tommy stepped forward, fists tightening. You brought a prison knife to a valley full of guns. Valdez smiled thinly. Guns can be traced. This can't. Torres leveled her rifle. Drop it. Or what? Valdez asked. You'll shoot? With a clinic full of civilians behind you, the tension hit a breaking point. A live wire stretched too far. Valdez raised the shiv. Inside the clinic, Sarah pushed patients into the interior rooms, breathing hard. Outside, Jack surged from cover. He roared. Miguel chased after him. Jack, don't. Valdez spun toward the noise, and the valley erupted. Floodlights blasted on from the Marshal trucks. Engines screamed as bikers circled. Valdez's men lifted weapons. Torres shouted for cover, and in that split, fractured second, Jack locked eyes with Sarah through the clinic window. Her lips shaped a single breathless word, Jack. The first gunshot cracked the valley open. Sharp, metallic, slicing the night like lightning. Instantly, Shays ignited. Marshals dove for cover. Angels revved engines. Valdez's men opened fire. Inside the clinic, Sarah grabbed the nearest patient, a teenage boy with a splinted leg, and shoved him into the supply alcove. Just as a bullet shattered the exterior window, glass sprayed across the tiles in a glittering arc. Jack saw it happen. A shard grazed her cheek. She flinched, then shielded the boy with her own body. Something feral tore loose in him. He sprinted from cover. Jack, Miguel shouted, but Jack was already moving, charging into a storm of muzzle flashes, dirt erupting around his boots. Tommy Iron barked a single order: form the wall. Angels swung their Harleys sideways, engines roaring as steel frames slammed into position, instantly creating a makeshift barrier. Riders knelt behind handlebars, returning fire with brutal efficiency. Brass casings rained down like hot rain. Valdez's men scattered, caught off guard by the sudden wall of chrome and gunpowder. 3 went down before they could regroup. Miguel slid next to Jack behind a dumpster, firing controlled bursts toward the tree line. You're insane, he yelled. Jack didn't argue. He never did during moments like this. Torres ducked behind a Marshal SUV, blood on her temple, voice steady through the comm. Alpha Team hold west, Bravo pivot north. Keep them off the clinic. Her tone sliced through the chaos, turning panic into structure. Marshals followed, forming overlapping fields of fire. But even with discipline, they were outnumbered. A van roared onto the access road. Another wave of Valdez's people. Torres cursed. They brought reinforcements. Miguel muttered. Of course they did. A wounded Marshal collapsed near the back entrance, hand pressed to his abdomen. Gunfire stitched the wall beside him. Stay with me, Sarah whispered, sliding across the floor toward him. Sarah, Torres yelled. Get back. But Sarah was already dragging the man into the alcove, hands working fast, tearing hausa, clamping pressure, ignoring every round, cracking the plywood door. Jack saw her through the broken window and sprinted faster. Valdez advanced through the clearing like a phantom, shiv gleaming in the sporadic muzzle flashes. He wasn't firing a gun. He was weaving between shots, cutting distance. Hunting. Cover Jack. Miguel barked. 2 angels shifted angle, providing suppression. Jack dove behind a planter box as bullets tore through its wooden frame. The air smelled of gunpowder and burning oil. Valdez's voice drifted through the smoke. Morrison, you came such a long way just to die here. Jack rose, eyes locked on the shadow moving right. Not before I bury you. 3 of Valdez's men breached the clinic's side wall, metal flashing from sledgehammers. Torres reacted instantly, firing 2 shots that dropped the first intruder. The other 2 ducked inside. Jack's stomach tightened. Sarah. He bolted toward the clinic door. Miguel followed, covering him with sweeping fire. The hallway was a maze of flickering lights and overturned equipment. Smoke drifted like spectral tendrils. Sarah was at the far end, shielding the dialysis patient, while the Ramirez boy whimpered behind her. The intruders saw Jack first. "Take him," one hissed. Jack charged. He hit the first man like a freight train, slamming him against the wall hard enough to crack drywall. The second swung a pistol towards Sarah. Sarah grabbed a metal tray and slammed it into his wrist. The gun skittered across the floor. Jack finished the job. Fist crunching into the man's jaw with a sickening pop. For a breath, everything stilled. Sarah stared at Jack, chest heaving. "Jackie." He reached for her, but then a shadow filled the hallway. Valdez, blocking the exit. "Schiff in Hunt. You two really are predictable." Valdez lunged. Jack shoved Sarah aside just as the shiv slashed air where her throat had been. Jack grabbed Valdez's arm, twisting, but the man was stronger than he looked. Prison muscle, compact and fast. The blade nicked Jack's forearm. Hot blood streaked down his wrist. Valdez grinned. "You bleed for her. How sweet." He drove Jack backward into a medical cart. Vials shattering, metal ringing. Jack blocked another slash, elbowed Valdez in the ribs, but the man was relentless. Jack stumbled. Valdez surged. The shiv arced toward his chest. Then Sarah moved. A flash of silver, a hiss of pressurized air. She jabbed a syringe into Valdez's neck. A full dose of ketamine. Emergency anesthetic. Valdez froze, eyes bulging. "What did you?" His limbs buckled. Jack slammed him to the floor as the drug overtook him. Valdez twitched once, then went still, breathing ragged but conscious enough to feel his defeat. Jack panted, blood dripping down his arm. Sarah pressed a hand to his wound. "You idiot," she whispered, shaking. "You shouldn't have come in here." Jack's voice was rough. "I'm not losing you again." Torres' voice cut through the radio. "Valdez down?" "Repeat." "Valdez is down." Angels roared a victory howl. Marshals surged forward with renewed force. The remaining gunmen panicked, firing wildly, losing formation. Tommy Iron strode through smoke like a general. "Push them back." The Angels advanced in a tightening arc, forcing Valdez's men toward the tree line. Marshals flanked them. One by one, the attackers fell, surrendered, or vanished into the woods. Silence rolled through the valley, broken only by engines cooling and distant sirens approaching. Miguel stumbled into the clinic, dust-covered and breathing hard. "You two alive?" he asked. Sarah gave him a withering look. "Barely." Jack managed a weak smile. Torres entered next. Radio crackling. She saw Valdez unconscious on the floor and let out a breath that was half relief, half disbelief. "Good work," she said. "Not standard procedure, but effective." Sarah snapped. "He attacked my patients." Torres nodded. "And he won't attack anyone again." Outside, lights strobed across the clearing as backup units arrived. Miguel exhaled. 7 minutes, he muttered. "That's how long this war lasted." Jack took Sarah's hand, squeezing gently. "Too long," he said, but she held on anyway. 6 months later, the world was quieter. Not safe, never truly safe, but quieter, in the way wounded things quiet when they begin to heal. Jack stood outside the 2-bedroom duplex, assigned through the Federal Family Integration Program. Morning light stretching long across the suburban pavement. The air tasted clean, pine, exhaust, early summer warmth. His Harley sat at the curb, polished to a mirror shine. Beside it, much smaller and much pinker, was a tiny helmet covered in butterfly stickers. Emma's helmet. Jack picked it up carefully, almost reverently. The weight was barely anything, but it felt heavier than steel to him. Proof of something earned, not given. Behind him, the screen door creaked. Uncle Jack. Emma chirped, her ponytail bouncing as she bounded down the steps. She wore little jeans, tiny riding boots, and a jacket Sarah insisted on, reinforced padding disguised with glittery hearts. Emma tugged the zipper all the way up, face full of impatient pride. "Is it time?" she asked, eyes wide. Jack grinned. "Yeah, kiddo, it's time." He knelt, setting the helmet gently over her head, checking the chin strap twice. Then once more for good measure. Emma held still, practically vibrating. "Okay," he murmured, tapping the visor. "Remember what we talked about." Emma snapped into her practiced routine, small hands forming signals the way Jack taught her. "Hold on tight. Lean when you lean. Don't wiggle or yell or kick the bike." Jack nodded solemnly. "Perfect." The door opened again. Sarah stepped out, hair braided over one shoulder, her medical badge clipped to her jacket. The scar on her cheek from that night had faded. Her eyes had not lost the edge, but their hardness had softened at the center. "Helmet on right?" she asked. Jack saluted her with 2 fingers. "Triple checked." Sarah approached, adjusting the helmet strap one last time anyway. Emma sighed dramatically but let her. Miguel exited the house last, fastening his own gear, carrying a second helmet under his arm. He'd taken the apartment next door, claiming federal protected neighborhoods were more peaceful than any he'd lived in. Though Jack suspected he just liked being close, Miguel arched an eyebrow. "You two ready for the inaugural family ride?" Emma shot her hand up like she was answering the easiest test in the world. "I'm 7 years old. I've been ready for months." Sarah smirked. "She's been practicing her posture on a cereal box." Emma puffed proudly. "It's exactly the same shape as a motorcycle seat." Jack laughed under his breath before lifting Emma carefully onto the modified passenger saddle. The bike had been rebuilt entirely since the Valley fight. Reinforced foot pegs, side guards, stabilizers, all overseen by federal safety inspectors, who looked at him like he was insane for trusting a child to his machine. He trusted her more than anything. Emma settled in, gripping the handle mounts with small but steady hands. Jack swung onto the front seat. Miguel moved to his own bike beside them, engine rumbling to life. Sarah stayed on the sidewalk for a moment longer, watching them, not nervous, just full. Jack caught her gaze. She mouthed, "Bring her back safe." He nodded once, a promise without needing words. He turned the key. His Harley woke with a deep, familiar roar that rolled through the quiet street like a heartbeat returning. Emma squealed behind him. "It's louder than I remembered." "Engines growl when they're happy," Jack said. He eased the bike forward, tires crunching softly on asphalt. Behind him, Sarah and Miguel followed on the second Harley. Miguel riding, Sarah seated behind, arms wrapped around him, not out of romance but out of balance. Posture relaxed in a way Jack hadn't seen in years. They rode out of the cul-de-sac, merging into a long, winding suburban road framed by tall, whispering firs. Wind tugged at Emma's jacket. Sunlight flashed off Jack's tattoo, the winged skull, the same one that started everything. After a few miles, they reached the overlook, a small clearing with a bench and view of the sprawling valley. Jack slowed, pulling to the edge. Emma hopped off, running to the railing. "It looks like forever," she shouted. Jack chuckled. "Feels like it too." Sarah dismounted behind Miguel and walked to Jack, eyes sweeping the view. "This place still feels unreal," she said quietly. "Sometimes I don't trust it's ours." Jack rested his elbows on the railing. "We earned it." Sarah nodded slowly. "We did." Emma rummaged in her jacket pocket and pulled out a folded paper, slightly wrinkled from being held too tight. Her newest drawing. She handed it to Jack with both hands. "Here, I made this for our case file." Jack unfolded it. 4 figures on 2 motorcycles. Emma on Jack's bike, Sarah and Miguel on the other, everyone smiling beneath a sky full of birds. In the corner, Emma had written in uneven block letters, "Family Adventure 1. With Uncle Thunder." Jack swallowed hard. Sarah leaned against him gently. "She's been working on that for days." Miguel chuckled. "She made me pose for reference. Twice." Emma planted her hands on her hips. "You didn't smile the first time." Jack folded the picture carefully and slipped it into his jacket near his heart. "We'll frame it," he said. Emma corrected. "We'll write it, so the picture knows what it feels like." Jack bit back a laugh. "That's not how paper works, kiddo. It is," Emma insisted. "If it's family." Sarah placed a hand on Jack's arm. "Let her logic win." He nodded, exhaling softly. For the first time in 15 years, breathing didn't hurt. Emma tugged his sleeve. "Can we ride more? Please." Jack smiled. "A real one. Unbroken." Yeah. We can ride." He lifted her onto the bike again, tightened the strap, and swung into the front seat. Sarah and Miguel mounted behind them. 2 bikes, 4 riders, 1 family, stitched together by ink, blood, asphalt, and impossible survival. Jack revved the engine. Emma threw both fists into the air, and together they rode into a wide-open road, sunlight spilling ahead of them like a promise. At its heart, this story reminds us that life often asks us to walk through darkness before we earn the light. Jack, Sarah, and little Emma are not heroes because they fought a violent man. They're heroes because they refused to surrender to guilt, to silence, to shame, or to the idea that their past defined their worth. In a world where keeping quiet can feel safer than speaking truth, their journey shows us the cost of silence and the freedom in breaking it. As the old saying goes, sunlight's the best disinfectant, and sometimes that sunlight comes from finally telling our story, reaching for help, or protecting the people who matter. Their bond reminds us that family isn't just blood, it's anyone who shows up when the storm hits. It's the people who hold the line when you can't hold it yourself. And just like the road Jack rides, healing isn't a straight path. It bends, dips, and throws gravel at your tires. But long roads reveal tough riders, and real strength grows in the miles we don't give up on. Most of all, this story is about reclaiming the parts of ourselves we thought were lost. It's about understanding that we can outgrow old pain, outlive old enemies, and outlast old versions of who we used to be. Justice, dignity, self-respect, these aren't abstract values. They're daily choices, lived in small acts of courage. If this story touched something in you, I invite you to share your thoughts, or a moment when you, too, had to stand up against something unfair. Tap like if you found meaning here, and subscribe to stay with us for more stories that challenge, heal, and stir something real. May you leave today with clarity, steady breathing, and a road that opens toward peace.